some people in this park even today say that they're ex-Muslims, and like I don't know all their reasons.
You should ask.
But
Ask,
I can only.
And then we can talk.
They're normally well into like some argument. I just stand.
No,
and listen.
what you can do, you can ask them and inquire them, and we can talk about it as we said, and we can demonstrate to you that this way. I mean, I can tell you right now. I mean, this is something that I can say with a bold face, that it was never intellectual reasons, nothing to do with truth claims. It was an emotional reasons. Are you a Muslim?
I'm not. No.
What's stopping you from accepting Islam, and why are you not a Muslim?
Because like I take things slowly. I don't rush into things because, for example, I see a number of.
Brother, it's okay. Brother, please don't do that, please. Okay, it's okay.
I see a number of Muslims or ex-Muslims, and there's a few here, and like they've been like in the I don't know, they've been in a Muslim family and they've left. So I wonder why is it that they would leave? Like if being a Muslim is such a great thing.
So what have you found? Those ex-Muslims who leave, why do they leave Islam? And why do they call themselves ex-Muslims? If somebody was a rapist, they're going to go around saying, I'm an ex-rapist. Because if that was so bad, you would not identify with something that is bad. If Islam is so bad, why you day and night identify with Islam? Oh, I'm an ex-Muslim. That's your identity. I'm an ex-Muslim. It tells you millions and volumes about, why this identity is needed. So in your understanding, let's talk about this one first, because that should clarify the matter. Why do people leave Islam? Those people that you've seen, that you've known about, why?
Some of them have said that they don't believe everything that's written like in the Quran. Some of them have said that.
Any specific examples they've shared?
Okay. I'm trying to think of the one that's been put forward most.
So keep on thinking, but what I want to at the same time to focus on is this, that if it's demonstrated that what they thought was a reason to leave is actually not a justifiable reason, then we would establish that they were not justified to leave. It was something else. Because the examples will illustrate that, whether the examples indeed was a justifiable reason for them to leave, saying, this is not something that I should accept.
Off the top of my head, I can't say for certain, because like a lot of like what I've seen is like when I've watched some of the debates online, video. So
okay, let's leave that then. Let's leave. No problem. Look, I'm not going to put it. You can come back to me. So let's leave the ex-Muslim community for now. But in terms of related to my question, you are searching and looking. So what are the things that you think are positive, and what are the things you consider to be negative, but you looking into and see whether they're actually indeed negative or not? So maybe you can clarify those things.
Okay, I think having a structure for like for living and worship, I think is a good thing.
Okay.
I think the fact that, for instance, certain aspects of like say law, for instance, like say for instance, let's say like the stance on alcohol. I think, well, mind you, I still drink, but I've cutting down. It's not something that I just switch off like that. Yeah,
it takes time.
Yeah, but I do see the damage that it does to a lot of people, and some people like totally lose control of themselves. So in general, I do see it as a good thing. Also, I feel that things like no interest policy, sort of like money lending, I think that's also a good thing. I think the fact that you believe that there is one God, I think that's a good thing in relation to, like, say, Christianity and the God the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and which the Bible does seem to. That makes that a bit. It's not exactly clear cut. It's like there are verses in the Bible that do seem to suggest that there is just one God, but it has been distorted, and then like that message has been like pushed out sort of to the wider public. So I do have issues in regards to the the number of gods basically. So those are some good things. There are some restrictive things in Islam which I would struggle with really, because like I'm a man. Ultimately, I do crave female attention. So it's not. I'm not a guy who could just remain. What's the word? When you
celibate.
That's the word. Yeah, yeah. I'm not. Yeah, I would struggle with that like long term, and I've been looking through certain certain surahs in the Quran, because I do.
Islam recognizes that. I'm sure you know. Islam recognizes this, and in fact, it doesn't take away from this need of man within their biological makeup it's given, and it caters for that in this life, and it caters for it in the next life. In the next life too. If someone who is really interested in this kind of pleasure from intimacy, Islam caters for it in such a way that it fulfills their biological need, their spiritual need. So it both takes into the physical and the spiritual at the same time, and uplifts you to give you that, the contentment and the pleasure and satisfaction that one needs, here and hereafter. That's why, that's in a purified manner, of course. That's why, even though it restricts relationship within marriage, because it wants to build a family. Family is one of the solid foundations of a unit for any structure of a society to function, and it gives you that sanctity, that responsibility, that just that kind of a framework in which you can actually fulfill your physical needs as well as have children, as well as have family, and then you can look into whole society and go on, continue your lineage, but in a marital contract in which responsibility is divided in both you and your partner. If there was no marriage, for example, then you can just say bye-bye, that's it, no more. But when there's a marriage, there's a responsibility. You have to, by way of contract, Islamically I'm talking about, looking after, taking care of, not only loving is not, you're not obliged to now you're not obliged to take care of them, take care of, maintain, support, nourish, and so on and so forth. So the responsibility and commitment comes in with marriage. So Islam does cater the physical needs, but it puts it in a framework and a boundary, and it recognizes some people may need to have more than one partner. And Islam tells you, if you can deal with them, again, in a responsibility framework, then 2, 3, or 4. So in God's divine wisdom, it's limited to 4. In the past, people had no limits. Islam came to restrict that with a limitation of 4. Okay? So, if you're really something like this, you can speak to Muslims who have 4 wives, for example, and you see whether they are really catered for or not, and you will see, depending on how much the libido that one has and so on and so forth, whether Islam does maintain one's, the cravings, you want to call it, or their desires having been satisfied. Okay, so there is a mechanism. Why restrict to 4 and not 3 and not 5 and not 20? This is the divine wisdom. Okay, because there's a lot of responsibility going on. I mean, some people are struggling to have one family, children, in-laws, and so on and so forth, having huge issues with looking after and maintaining that, let alone 4 families to maintain. But people can, and the provision is there, but Islam restricted that. So when it comes to, these things, Islam doesn't simply just brush it aside, saying, no, become a celibate, go live like an ascetic individual in the top of a mountain, and that's it. No, because God knows how He created you. He knows your needs, because God is the one who gave you those needs. But God also wants people to know one thing, that this need that I have to fulfill the purpose of my life, and can be a test against me. Okay? Some people want to have wealth and fame, for example. I want to be famous. I want to have million subscribers. I want to have these followers. I want to have people saying, you are the king. This kind of thing. This could be a test, whether this is really making people to really be a slave to their ego, or are they really going to be the slave to their creator? So, just to give you a mundane example, Muslim men cannot wear gold or silk. A lot of people like gold. Men like gold. But this is a test. Whether do you really want to submit to God and submit to His will, and see whether demonstrating that you'd submit. So He's just given you like, okay, silk and gold are for whom, not for you. See whether you really submit to His law. Some people struggle. Yeah? So this can be a test. So God can test us in various ways to see whether we are really someone who, having given the faculty of choice, are able to use it rather than abuse it. So when you look at lots of things, one of these things that you example, yeah, it can be a struggle for many people, okay? But there is a reason for it. And God says clearly, if you can remain yourself, if you haven't been married, become chaste, and there are mechanisms to ensure that. So suppress the desire by fasting, okay? Keep on fasting. So fasting will make sure that desire that you have is overburdening you, can keep in control. So there's a mechanism, like, in fasting, we not only abstain from food or drink, otherwise our fast is not going to be accepted. We abstain from vain talk, backbiting, insulting, mocking. So even these things that were like food we abstain from, which were permissible, but even something that is permissible, but we abstain from, sexual relationship during the daytime. It's a way of having this training and development of oneself, and see whether you can control yourself. Because if you can do that, that's like some people having control with drinking alcohol, for example. During the fasting period, you can't drink. Well, a little bit of struggle, they can do it. People have problems with smoking, they can withstand these hours between sunrise to sunset and not smoke. Okay? People can do that. They've shown this resilience. They've shown that human beings, the level of tolerance is actually quite high. Okay? You don't know your potential. Islam wants to develop that human being with the understanding of their potential. It trains them every year by this month of Ramadan to elevate them in their character, in their desires, in their ego, and comes to, this is called internal jihad, if you didn't know. Struggle of your own self internally to make yourself to that better human being. Human being better in the sense that healthier, sounder in judgment, sounder in health, better in understanding and reflecting. So whatever you imagine to be virtuous in mind and body, Islam prepares you for that. So yes, there are struggles to have with, but this is for your own good. Don't people go to the gym and lift weight, and it's so painful often, but it eventually gives them a good outcome.
Even they said that there's no pain, no gain.
Yeah, gives them good outcome. So training often requires, sometimes you have to sacrifice with pain and a little bit of suffering and so on. So that was one example. What other things else do you think?
Alcohol in the beginning.
Yeah, so alcohol, what God says in the Quran, they ask you about wine and gambling. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask you about wine, alcohol, and gambling. God says, in them, there is sin and there is good. Good and there is sin. But the sin outweighs the benefit that it has. So Islam does not simply say, oh, there is no benefit in some alcohol. With alcohol, even though it's not something you drink, we have a lot of things that we mix it with. It's a good diluent, right? Alcohol, it can be a good diluent in many things. And there could be other benefits. But the benefits and the sin, when you compare the bad effects, outweighs it. That's why health-wise, the safest level of alcohol consumption, according to the consensus of almost what? More than 100 countries or so, right? 0%. No alcohol. So the one then should question is, why is that so? Because alcohol actually is something that befogs the mind. It's a chemical poison in a way. It does make you a little bit loose. I mean, when you drink, you have your guards taken off. You become free and you start talking to people and having fun and so on. That's what people feel easy to socialize. So alcohol has been in various societies and a tool for socialization with other people, to know about each other, to hang around with each other, to have that bond and connection, because it puts their guard off, because that judgment isn't there. You just talk whatever you want to do and so on and so forth. This is what it does. It really impairs your sound judgment. So you're no longer critical at that point and so on and so forth. You're no longer thinking rationally. You can just, whatever comes to your heart and so on, you will talk and you will do that thing. And that's why under the influence of alcohol, people go in and they might be sleeping with their mothers or their daughters or their sisters and so on and so forth, because they haven't got a clue what's happening in their mind. So Islam prevents and prohibits things which are not good for us, okay? And it recognizes that alcohol is not good for you and for the society, ultimately. So it prevents that harm to come to that society by preventing it, okay? So Islam is for prevention rather than dealing with it and trying to find the cure. If you can prevent it, it's better than trying to find your cure when the problem happens. Okay. Gambling, look how many people by gambling, I've got £1 million now, I can go to holiday, I can pay my... But look what it done to other people. Some other people just gamble away all of their things. And now societies are trying to restrict, saying, okay, gamble sensibly. Okay, have an alarm saying, this is the limit. Don't gamble too much and so on and so forth. But people still can't do that because they don't know when to access, because it's an addiction. Alcoholism, likewise, gambling is an addiction, and people have problems to get rid of this problem of addiction, and it takes long rehabilitation. So Islam says, yes, people can, with this money that is collected by gambling, it can be given to charity, as they do, for example. So there may be some benefit in this process, but Islam looks at it overall and saying, look, holistically for the society, it's actually not a good thing. The harm outweighs the benefit. Harm outweighs the benefit, so no. So this is the principle of Islam. Islam simply doesn't say, oh, no, not for that reason. It recognizes there can be some benefit in it. So alcohol, gambling, fornication, which is marital relationship outside marriage, what it does is it destabilizes the society. You just go and sleep with whoever else and so on and so forth. I mean, and you get unwanted child, and then you say, let's abort it. And the girl says, no, I want it. And then she says, no, I want you to look after it. And no, I didn't want it. Many young parents we know of, they come in saying, okay, the partner's left, and she's now trying to bring up that child, because women are different than men in various ways. So when they're pregnant, their internal biology tells them they don't want that to be aborted. They might be some way compelled by various elements of the society saying, oh, you can abort it, it's okay. But lots of women don't want to. And now they want to have this child coming up with one parent themselves. It's a lot of struggle and difficulty. That child that is now born and brings up himself in a one-parent family, psychologically is impacted already. How much torture they're going through, you and I would not know unless you are in their shoes. So it does really have a devastating effect on the society, the individuals that come out from this problem interactions. So Islam recognizes all of that, saying, look, it wants to give a society which is thriving in prosperity, in harmony, in understanding, and in love, and all of these things. How does it ensure that? By giving you mechanisms to ensure. So it's called hudud, boundaries. Islam says, yeah, these are the things that are prohibited for you. You can have anything else. Oh, you cannot drink alcohol, but you can drink orange juice, banana juice, apple juice, carrot juice, tomato juice, you name it. I can just keep on going on. There's no restriction. But only few things Islam restricts for their own benefit. Usury is another one I mentioned. Look at how the world is enslaved. Whether you talk about Rwanda, whether you talk about the third world countries, talk about the worlds are enslaved by usury interest. Islam, what Islam says, God and His Messenger has declared a war against riba, declared a war. This is how serious it is taken. And Islam doesn't want people to be enslaved in that, because if you think about it, now I'm going to give you some rational understanding of that. What is usury in interest? Imagine now, I have a house, my top roof is broken, right? I want to repair it, but I have no money. You're my friends. I go to you. Now, if you're my friend, and I say, just give me £1,000, I'll give it to you 3 months later. Okay? You say, yeah, no problem. That's it, give it. Now imagine I go to another friend. He says, oh yeah, I'll give you money, but you have to give me 25% on top of it. 1,200 3 months later. Do you know what this friend is doing? He is exploiting my vulnerability and my weakness at that point, because I am desperate. I need it. He recognizes my weakness and vulnerability, and he says, now, you know what? Let's make some money. Okay, give me that. So this is a vulture. Okay, someone who's greedy, someone who's not a compassionate person. Okay, so the whole system is set up like that with banks. They were set up by people. Initially, it was people with this kind of greed and exploitation mentality to exploit their weaknesses and vulnerability to other people. Islam says no. Someone is in need. If you have the means, capacity, help them out, make a contract, and they will pay you back. There's no way saying, oh, deny that, oh, no, you didn't give me money. Lending, borrowing, Islam says, even if it's small, write it down and bring witnesses, so you don't regret it later. But do not take and give interest. So now we realize Islam provides a solution, and it maintains the empathy. It doesn't become, between you and me, something like an exploitation. You are going to exploit my weakness at that point. You are still going to show me the friendship that you have, rather than not. Okay? So the whole world, if you think about it, the banking system is really exploiting the people who are weak and so on.